What's happening, people? Guess what? You are listening and watching, uploading and downloading another version of the Giants Guys. I got Michael Stewart in the building, the truth. I got Mikey fresher than me. And as promised, when things go bad, we need someone to bring us some sort of good news. Who's closer to the team than beat reporter Paul Dottino? How are you, Paul?
Hi, guys. Very good to talk to you again. I hope everything's well.
Yeah, you've been a friend to us now for a while. We lean on you to put a smile on our face because you know what's going on more than anyone with the team. You know the heartbeat of the team. And we had a good win this week, so there's some positivity, behind the fan base. But I wanted to ask this one Herculean question about the temperature of the team. Like last year, right, it was, is Jones the guy? Then they spend all this money, Paul, on bringing all these tools in for him, like Galladay and Rudolph, right? And every week, I think, me personally, that Jones has stepped up and progressed. Every week, he's doing something else to help this team win. But we're still 2-5. After all the money spent, all these draft picks, what's the temperature of the team? Like, do you feel they're still in? They're still behind Judge? They're still behind Jones? What's the temperature of the team in the building?
Well, first off, just about Daniel Jones, he certainly did not play well against the Rams.
Correct.
I think we would all agree with that.
Yeah.
But other than that, he has had a really good season and has taken a step forward from his second year in the NFL. So let's get that off the shelf.
Yep.
In terms of the temperature of the team, look, I was just down there today. There's no question these folks are still behind Judge and the coaching staff. The players needed to believe in themselves more. Look, when they won last Sunday, when they beat Carolina at home, you guys understand this. There were no people in the stands last year. So when the Giants swept the NFC East at home and beat Philadelphia, Washington, and Dallas, which, by the way, I think every Giants fan for years has been craving for, to see them sweep the division at home.
Yep.
Nobody got to see it because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I think that's also part of the problem here in terms of the fans' perception, because they weren't allowed to enjoy the spoils of some very sweet victories during the course of the 2020 season.
Great point.
But having said that, you really needed to be in the building during the final minutes of the game the other day against Carolina, because in reality, it was the first time the Giants have been able to give their fans in their home stadium a victory since the 2019 season.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I was on the field, okay, and as the last several minutes were ticking down in the fourth quarter, the place was electric.
Yeah.
You honestly would have thought it was a playoff game.
Yeah.
And the fans were enjoying it as much as the players, and vice versa.
Yeah.
It was a very energetic boost, and I think it gave everybody in that building a lift. And I'm talking about coaches, ownership, scouts, players, fans, concession stands people, if you will.
Yeah, no, sure.
It was wild.
Yeah, I saw you a couple of weeks ago when I came to see you. That game against the Rams felt like it was 6 hours long. Like it just wouldn't end. This week, everybody was having fun. People were high-fiving, highlighted by, Daniel Jones in the catch. Like there was something to root for. And when the game ended, everybody's Sunday was a whole lot better. Right? I mean, so I just was kind of curious on, when you're around, you said you were down there today, like, I'm assuming the vibe is good. The players are still buying in. And I'm assuming they're seeing guys like, listen, Jones is taking hits. He's running the RPO. He's making the throws. Now he's making catches. I mean, I would have to think that everybody's, he's tough. And I'd have to think as a player, you're like, hey, I'm behind this guy. This guy wants to win bad.
Yeah. I don't think there's any doubt that everyone in that locker room believes in Daniel Jones. They see how hard he works during the week. See, fellas, I think what's important to understand, it's not just what happens on game day. To be frank, it's more important what happens during the course of the week.
Okay.
When you see that he's the first guy in, the last guy out, just like Eli Manning was.
Yep.
When you see that every week he has a special meeting with the wide receivers before the game on Fridays, just like Eli Manning did.
Awesome.
That's the kind of stuff that builds cred in the locker room. And that's what begins the foundation of leadership even before the ball is kicked off on Sunday. And then what he does on Sunday just adds to the entire picture of the quarterback. But if he's not doing the stuff during the week, what he does on Sunday doesn't mean as much. And I'm being serious with you because, look, these guys put in an awful lot of blood, sweat, and tears every day at practice. Joe Judge runs a very regimented practice schedule during the course of the week. Now, look, they do have some of these load management days where, players get to have a day on the side or they get to rest and they get to work with the trainers. That's all part of the new NFL anyway. That's just something that we have to live with in 2021.
That's 2021. Yeah.
That's just what it is. Okay, that's just the nature of the NFL today. But the practices are very regimented. They're very specific. They're very particular. There's an awful lot of structure going on a daily basis. And for Jones to take his bull by the horns himself, and they're going to go above and beyond with the kind of work ethic that he has, hours before practice and then hours after practice, the players look at that and they say, my God, look at this guy working. Look at what he's doing to try to be better. And we know he's got the ball on every offensive snap. So he has more control over our destiny than anybody else. And when we see what he's putting into it, how can we not feel good about him?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
I
funny,
mean, we've talked about it, ad nausea that, the people that don't see it, I can't see what they don't see. It's like it's just week after week. He is trying to put more into his game. He's trying, he's putting the work in. You see him walking off the practice field late with receivers. Like you said, he's got his own wide receiver meeting on Friday. Like, I don't know how you don't trust and like the kid because he wants to win and he wants to lead and he wants to do the best he can. I don't know how more people don't see it. Like after that catch and that hit, him popping up.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved it.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff you want your leader to be made of. You're like, this guy has got it. This guy has got it. So I don't understand why he's still getting criticism, from around the league or I saw a guy on Twitter said today he was listening to some Kansas City podcasts and they scoff at losing, against the Giants. And I'm like, listen, Kansas City's a mess right now. We'll talk about Kansas City in a minute. I'm I'm as a fan, I think a lot of us are really happy with Jones. I was wondering what your take was on his progression this year.
Greg, I'll give you one thought. I was asked to do a speaking engagement last week.
Okay.
And somebody asked me about Daniel Jones. And I said, look, you have to understand in this league, the quarterback will always get more credit than he deserves and always less credit than he deserves when things go badly, right?
Sure.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the example that I gave the guy. I said, do you remember when Kurt Warner was with the Rams and he was the NFL MVP and quarterbacking the greatest show on turf?
Yep.
He had Jackie Slater,
He could do
playing
no
left
wrong.
tackle. He had these great wide receivers. He had a sensational running back.
Yeah.
And he was putting up pinball numbers on the scoreboard every week. And people were thinking this guy is going to be a surefire bet for the Hall of Fame. So then he gets hurt, comes to the Giants, plays okay. He was good. He was okay.
But it wasn't Kurt Warner level play.
No.
Yeah.
And then after he leaves the Giants, he goes to
crushes.
Arizona, winds up with the starting job again, and goes to the Super Bowl as another all-star quarterback, resuscitating as an all-star and solidifying his place in Canton in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. Now, is that because he was any less of a quarterback during the year when he was with the Giants? No.
He just didn't have Anquan Bolden and Larry
all
Fitzgerald.
the pieces and the parts around him were not as conducive to him putting up superstar numbers.
Sure.
Kurt Warner never changed. Obviously.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think the biggest thing too, when I think about Daniel Jones, an old boss of mine once told me, one of the best compliments you can get is unsolicited feedback. Like someone comes up to you and tells you how great somebody else is without them asking their opinion. And just like watching all the Giants players like bring up Daniel Jones and the way that they talk about him. And then in the last 18 months, there's been so much speculation on, is he the guy? Is he not the guy? There's been zero whispers from anybody that's inside the organization about moving on. Like have been behind him since day one because of the way he works behind closed doors. And I completely agree with what you're saying. Like
you remember, guys, you remember when we interviewed Alex Bachman, what did he say? So we interviewed Alex Bachman last year, and he didn't have a car. So he had to take a bus and a subway to get to the stadium. Because he didn't want to be late for practice, he would get there as early as he could, something like 5:30. And he said that when he would get there, Daniel Jones and Eli Manning's car was in the driveway already. And he would,
right.
So he would have breakfast every morning with Eli Manning and Daniel Jones. And then when practice ended, he would wait for all the traffic to go, and he would get on the subway, onto the bus, back into Manhattan. He went, and he had dinner with Daniel Jones and Eli Manning, the last two out of the building. So you're right. Both of you are right. I mean, if you see the work ethic and you see what's being put in, I'm sure you get a ringing endorsement from the players.
Fellas, I'm going to give you one more short little Daniel Jones item. We talk about how much he learned from Eli and how much, in a way, he is an Eli 2.0. Think about this. Not only did Eli Manning set a firsthand example for Daniel Jones from the minute he walked onto campus, Jerry Schleplinski, the Giants quarterbacks coach, was the quarterbacks coach for Tom Brady in New England.
Yep.
Who is universally recognized probably as the hardest working quarterback 12 months out of the year that there has ever been.
Hands down.
Okay? So not only had Daniel Jones learned from Eli Manning while Eli was in the locker room, he's got Jerry Schleplinski, who has seen what Brady has done
and
brought that to the Giants locker room. And I guarantee you, a lot of what Daniel Jones does is also a reflection on Jerry Schleplinski, who I'm sure if Daniel Jones were to slip in any way, Jerry would probably nicely remind him, hey, Daniel, we got to look a little harder this week. Yeah. I'm sure that's what happened. Not that it ever would.
That's a good point.
But Daniel has a built-in safety valve, if you will, that's going to make sure he minds his P's and Q's as long as he's here.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, I'll take the next question. First and foremost, I'm wearing LT this week for two reasons. Number one, our pass rush came alive this week. Number two, you are the LT of covering the Giants as far as I'm concerned, Paul. Great to be on with you, my man. Been following your work for a long time.
Well, you're very kind, but I don't think anybody deserves that lofty status.
So watching the offense last year in year one of Jason Garrett and Daniel Jones, we had a feeling that they were doing some things or not doing some things because of what they were working with. We knew they needed a little bit more dynamic playmakers, and that they had a very young offensive line. You mentioned the last time you were on with the crew here. I wasn't on, but when you were on it, you talked a lot about how it was a young offensive line, the pandemic, didn't have much time together, first year in a new system. And September last year was kind of like a preseason, right? And in the second half of the year, they developed and got a lot better. Then you fast forward to this year and the offense, you can kind of see it coming together, I think, before the injuries happened. In that second half against the Saints, specifically the fourth quarter, you started to see what Jason Garrett and Daniel Jones can do with some of these pieces, and you got really excited. And then, of course, the injuries happened. And now we're sitting here again, and I can't help but feel bad and scratch my head for Jason Garrett on how can you get back to those dynamic plays and the getting away from being such a vanilla offense when you have so many moving parts in the offensive line, when you don't have receivers that get first team reps all the time in there with Jones. And what we're trotting out there now, personnel wise, looks a little more like last year due to some of the injuries. So what is it? Is it more creativity that's needed? Is it just we need some bodies back in there? Like, what do you make of where the offense is right now?
Well, it was just a couple weeks back. Remember when Tony had started that game 2 weeks ago, and he caught 3 passes on the Giants' first 6 plays. And Jason Garrett admitted to us he was a huge part of the game plan against the Rams.
Yeah, he did.
But he got hurt, and now all of a sudden, a huge chapter of the playbook, boom, in the fireplace. Because there's nobody else on the team that can do some of the things that Kadarius Toney can do. Let's not kid ourselves. I love Joe Judge saying next man up, got to step up, step up mentality. Look, backups are backups for a reason. And there are some guys who you cannot replace. Yeah, you can fill their shoes, but the shoe doesn't fit quite as good, does it?
Yeah.
You can't run like a
Let's
Tony.
get real.
Yeah.
And let's get real.
Yeah.
Coach speak is great, but it doesn't tell you the true story.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's be clear about this. So Tony gets hurt, and he's out of that game, and so that takes a big chunk out. Then they lose Andrew Thomas.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden, they've also missed their left tackle, and now they got to work with another configuration of the offensive line.
And that's a big loss. I'd argue that loss is bigger than Tony and Galladay.
I mean, so fellas, I know everybody wants to point fingers. Everybody wants to play the blame game. I totally understand that. But the fact is, sometimes circumstances happen. Okay? It happens. If you go set up a ladder outside your house to go clean the gutters on the roof, and all of a sudden a big gust of wind comes and blows the ladder over, and you fall down and get hurt, is anybody to blame? No. It just happened. It's not your fault.
I'm blaming myself for not paying someone else to clean my gutters, Paul. Just so you know, as I'm in the hospital, I'm blaming myself that I didn't pay someone to clean the gutters. Okay,
my wife
I don't
is
mean to
blaming me.
sidetrack
My
you,
wife
but
is
I'm just
blaming me
saying.
for that.
But Craig, did you have money under the salary cap to afford?
Of course I didn't. I'm Dave Gettleman. Well, you know what? Let me ask you a question, because this is right along what you were saying about pointing the fingers. This is not a conspiracy question, and it's definitely not a finger pointing question, but I haven't seen this in a while. I mean, we've got 3 or 4 ACL injuries. We have 3 or 4 hamstring injuries, and now we've got, I think, and Thomas has a foot injury. Like, a lot of soft tissue injuries, a lot of tears. Like, it's got to be coincidence. I get it. I do get it. Like, we were laughing before we started the show. Barkley steps on a guy's foot. Like, who would have thought that could even remotely happen? And people were saying,
accident.
Yeah, but it's amazing, because I had a couple people say, why didn't they just, shoot him up, tape him up? I'm like, did you see the shoe off his foot? Like, how much fluid he had in his ankle? I'm like, he's not going to be able to run on that ankle. Just out of curiosity, like, again, next man up. But man, I've never seen a rash of, lower body injuries like this in a while. I mean, is there a thought process at all to, I don't know, are they, I'm never going to say laps aren't good or they're not working too hard, but I just never seen it where you have so many ACL injuries. I don't know, like, feels like I said, like they walked under a ladder or there's a black cat running around.
Craig, I don't have an answer for you, and nor do they. Look, here's what I can tell you. For all the people out there who think that there's something wrong with the MetLife Stadium turf, I'm sure you remember a couple years back when the San Francisco 49ers complained. They played the Giants and the Jets within a couple of weeks span.
And they complained about the turf.
And they complained about the turf to the National Football League. So the National Football League sent out inspectors
to
MetLife Stadium, and they specifically did a full testing mock-up on the turf at the stadium. And they found out that it passed every test with flying colors. Yeah. They got like the highest grade you could get for artificial turf, A+ across the board. So I'm prepared to tell you, based on that information that I know the league has, that the turf at Giant Stadium, MetLife Stadium, I'm sorry.
No problem.
Is as good as it can be.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to say to me that a natural surface would not have caused some of these injuries and any artificial surface might promote those injuries a little bit more, I would be open to listening to you. I can't give you any evidence either way.
Sure.
But you can present that to me and I can't refute you. But I can tell you concretely that the turf at MetLife Stadium is as good as any professional field in the world.
Yeah, passes with flying colors. And only because we've been talking about injuries, and we just, it's stunning on how many they are. And it really has taken, as Mike just alluded to a couple of minutes ago, without those pieces, like you said, backups are backups for a reason. You can't expect a whole lot. Like I defend the Giants all the time, right? And anyone on Twitter or Facebook or anything, I get crushed for being a homer. And I just said, look, it is what it is. Like, you still have to go to battle every day. You still got to move on. You still got to put a product on the field. Like, and it is what it is. Like, you can't look for it. It's not there's no magic bullet out there. And it's one of those years where next year you may have no injuries. Nobody may get hurt. You may go through the whole season and there's not an injury at all. But right now we're in that odd spot.
And a lot of times too, at the end of the year, you look at the teams that go far. Like, look at Tampa last year, how all of their impact players were playing at the end of the year and not banged up. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just how it is. It's like a battle of attrition. And everybody in the offseason really was thirsty for playmakers, like, right? Like, if you're going to be realistic about it, like, I think Gettleman and everyone did a great job. Like, Barkley, Tony, Galladay, like, they have these pieces. Like, is it Gettleman's fault that they're not playing now? No, it's just like you said, everybody has injuries, so it's not an excuse, but there are reasons why I think the offense can't be as dynamic as they could be.
Fellas, before the season, I remember on Big Blue Kickoff Live, our hosting crew kind of got together and we basically asked the fans, who are the Giants' top 3 players outside of the quarterback that you cannot afford to lose? And for me, it was easy.
Thomas.
It was Blake Martinez was number 1.
Oh, okay. He would have been my 2.
The reason Blake Martinez was number 1 for me was because look at the drop-off behind him.
Mm-hmm.
All right?
Great
You're
point.
talking about an all-pro caliber player. I know he didn't make it all-pro team.
But we all know.
All-pro caliber player. And then when you consider the fall off the cliff on the depth chart after Blake Martinez, I said, fellas, I'm sorry. He's got to be the number 1 guy for me. And I appreciate Galladay. He's I appreciate Barkley. I appreciate Andrew Thomas. I think one of the guys might have also said James Bradbury. I appreciate all those answers. But for me, Blake Martinez was devastating to this team. Okay? Because Reggie Ragland, it does not nearly have the productivity or the athleticism, and I'm going to dare say the leadership skills of what Blake Martinez brings to that team. Sure. I mean, look at the guy's production, for God's sakes. The first, last 5 years of his career.
Yeah.
Okay?
He's a machine.
He's just not. He's just not. And by the way, Blake Martinez is also a 3-down linebacker. He stays on the field and doesn't come off.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's right.
Tay Crowder is a sub-package interior linebacker.
Yeah.
He's not a full-time linebacker in my book.
You're right.
He doesn't thump downhill enough.
No, he is not a thumper at all. It's of all the years with Martinez out, you see the flaws in Crowder on a weekly basis. Great guy. We love him, but like you can see it's just from a skill standpoint. He's not a downhill thumper. He's definitely not that cerebral guy. He doesn't get off blocks. He loves to try to strip the ball, but he's not that tackling machine. So he,
in short, to use a fantasy football term, which I can't believe I'm going to do because I hate fantasy football, but Blake Martinez is an inside linebacker 1.
Yeah.
Tay Crowder is not an inside linebacker 1.
No.
He could be an inside linebacker 2, playing in conjunction with Blake Martinez.
Yep.
Okay?
Yeah, they work well
next
together.
To Reggie Ragland, who was probably an inside linebacker 3 or 4.
Yeah.
That's not going to work.
Yeah. In fact, we all laughed that we said, that Ragland was Mayo, who was Downs. All three of them were the exact same player.
Well, there you go.
They were literally, and those were your linebacker, your inside linebacker 2 and 3 for the last 3 years. All of them are exactly identical. It wouldn't
Now,
matter
I
who
will
was
add
in
this
it.
to you. They picked up McKinney last week.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, from what I understand, I have talked to some scouts. They believe that McKinney can be a downhill first and second down run stopping linebacker.
Okay.
Situational, of course. He's not a 3-down backer. We know that.
Yeah.
That's not what he does. But in terms of a run first, downhill, fill the gaps, punish people kind of linebacker,
Yeah.
they definitely believe that he's got a place on this team.
Oh, well,
I agree.
That's good to know too, because you notice the difference when Martinez isn't in there. Go ahead, Truth. Go ahead.
No, I have something that's been bothering me all season. And
bothering you. That's strong language, Michael.
I mean, I go way back to Tarkenton days when I was a kid. I used to watch the Giants, and they've always had very good tight ends. They had Aaron Thomas, they had Bob Tucker, Pavaro. And
Don't forget
Shockey.
Joe Walton. He started it all.
Wait.
Oh yeah.
Wait. I'm gonna
That's
date myself here for a second, because I'm pretty sure I remember this correctly. Wasn't Gary Shirk a tight end? All right.
Number 87.
Gary Shirk. Yeah.
I'm just
Number
saying
87.
that was
Tom Mullity was there also at that time.
I was very, very, very little at that point, but I do remember having some Gary Shirk football cards.
There you go.
Well, anyway, I noticed that this year, and even the Giants do not utilize the tight end like I would like them to, because they got some pretty good players in Rudolph, and they have Smith, who I think doesn't get utilized enough. Well, what's your take on the usage on their tight ends?
I will say this. I do think that the tight ends have been used to stay in and block a lot more than you probably would like them to.
That's fair.
So that in itself is going to cut down on their available targets. Now, having said that, for the amount of times that they do go out in routes, I would tend to agree with you. I would like to see some more targets to those guys. Again, understanding that the number of routes they're running has certainly decreased over the course of the early part of the season because they have been required to stay in more.
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting when you look at the Giants' offensive line and you realize, all the combinations that they've had to utilize. And then you say to yourself, well, okay, if those guys need extra help, how do you give it to them? And there's a lot of ways you can do it, but one of them is clearly keep the tight end in more. And that seems to be the option that the Giants have gone with, in addition to getting rid of the ball quicker. Those are the two things that they seem to have done to try to assist the offensive line. There are a couple of other options you could use as well, but those are the two that they seem to have favored.
Let me ask you this, Paul. I've watched every game, and maybe I missed something. I've yet to see Rudolph in the red zone get a pass. Maybe I missed it. Maybe
he did this
It
week.
was an overthrow a few weeks ago.
And he had a 2-point
okay.
and a 2-point conversion.
And he did get a 2-point.
And this week he had the almost, right?
Yeah,
With the pylon.
really.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I don't know how you overturned that.
I know where you're going though. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I just think a guy who's 6'6", a big target, who hasn't dropped the ball in like 2 years now, right? I think that's what the
He's
stats
got
tell you.
incredible hands.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's all the way back from his injury yet.
I don't. Listen, you just do a quick, just find a little spot in the end zone. It doesn't take much, You gotta throw to him. You gotta at least do something with him. You can't just.
I happen to agree with you. I think one of the puzzlers for me right now is that Kyle Rudolph proved his whole career in Minnesota that he was a third down monster.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, he was outstanding in the red zone.
41
who
touchdowns.
can always find the goal line. And we know he wins 50-50 balls and doesn't drop anything.
Right.
Now,
We're
when you
last in the
consider
end zone.
all of those factors, and those were the reasons why they brought him in, right?
And we're still last in red zone.
And yes, so I agree with you. I think one of the few puzzlers that I've been unable to figure out so far, because there are a lot of things that I have been able to figure out, a lot of things that just can't be figured out. And then there are a few questions that I'm still looking for the answer. That's one of those. I don't know why Kyle Rudolph has not been targeted more down inside the 20 or even in the end zone itself. I concur with you. It's a puzzler for me. I wish I had the answer. I do believe that he's not as mobile as he was in his prime. I absolutely believe that. And I also believe that they have tried definitely to make more use of his blocking. I get all of that. But come on, man, you got to find that guy down there. I'm with you. I'd like to see it.
Well, and we've all, and Michael, it's a great question, because that's one of those head scratchers where, we've got 3 tight ends on the team. We know that Ingram's had a very roller coaster up and down career at the Giants. They bring in Rudolph. We're not sure why he brings him in. We're thinking red zone, right? 41 touchdowns over 10 years, and they don't use him. And as you alluded to, that Liz Frank injury, from what I read, it may take him 1.5 to 2 years to be fully recovered, right?
Well, here's the thing, though. I would add this. If you're down inside the red zone or inside the 10-yard line, like the deep red zone, which is what they call it nowadays, to me, I don't know that Kyle Rudolph needs a whole lot of explosiveness to be able to catch a touchdown pass.
Sure.
Yeah, that's true.
He's big. He's strong. He has length. He can out-wrestle any defensive back in this league for the football.
Yeah.
I don't know that he needs speed or separation once you get into the deep red zone to score a touchdown.
Yeah, like throw him a jump ball.
Okay, and that's just me being me. Okay, I'm being honest with you.
Yeah.
Now,
no, listen, we're right behind you.
Okay, over the course of the first 7 games, all right, the Giants, they look at their weapons, and they looked at Barkley, they looked at Slayton, they looked at Galladay, they looked at Shepard, they looked at all these other targets, and they probably said to themselves, even though they've all been in and out of the lineup at various times during the first 2 months, I get that. They probably said to themselves, well, isn't that guy a better option than Rudolph? I don't know if I agree with that. I'll be honest. In some cases, I probably wouldn't. But that's probably the kind of question they've asked themselves. Do we like the matchup of so-and-so against Slayton, of so-and-so against Shepard?
And Paul, I think why even Michael brings it up is that we've been stuck on, and they laugh at me because I honestly think the best tight end on a team is Kaden Smith.
Kaden Smith.
At the end of 2019, it was a series of Miami, Jacksonville, and Washington, I want to say. He had 170 yards, 14 catches, 2 touchdowns, something on those. I mean, the kid seems that old school traditional tight end, right? Because we've got a lot of dynamic wide receivers. Why not have a traditional tight end? We've got 2. We don't throw to Rudolph. Ingram, like I said, I don't want to kill Evan Ingram. He's had some great moments and some up and down moments, but Kaden Smith has done everything they've asked him to do. And anytime he's out on the field, he just catches the ball. So we're also in that. Yeah, we're in that same boat. He seems to even have a good rapport with Jones. Why don't they throw him the ball? It's just I don't get it.
I hate to burst your bubble. He does a lot of things okay, but does nothing great.
He does nothing. Okay. That's a really good way to say it.
That's really what it comes down to. He's pretty good at everything. He's pretty good at catching.
Yep.
He's pretty good at holding on to the ball. He's pretty good at blocking. He does everything pretty good, but he doesn't have speed. He's not going to get downfield. He is not considered any type of vertical threat whatsoever. He's never going to get yards after the catch. He will probably never break any tackles.
Interesting.
He's pretty good at a lot of things, but
he's your
not
typical
great
third
at
tight
any
end.
one thing.
Yeah. That's why we thought if you have Ingram and him, why bring in Rudolph, right?
because Rudolph is an outstanding blocker and a tremendous red zone target and end zone target,
Yeah.
which unfortunately to this point has not been utilized to its fullest potential.
Great. I love it.
Good stuff.
Let's ask the hard questions now. Those are the easy ones. Those are the softball ones.
I have one. I have a really good one from Twitter for later too.
All right, yeah, hold on out. All right. This one. Here's the hard questions. Paul, what's wrong with the defense? 9th ranked defense, Paul.
Yeah.
The 9th ranked defense is at the bottom of the barrel. They are not clearly even the same defense. When I can't tell you that the personnel it's different, but
a little bit,
little
bit, not much.
The core is still there, right? Logan Ryan's still there. Leo's still there. Earlier. Yeah. What is the problem with the defense?
Blake, you know what they say sometimes about you don't know how much a guy is really worth until you miss him?
Yeah.
Blake Martinez is a big deal. But even before he got hurt in the Atlanta game in week 3, the Giants defense had not performed up to par the first 2 games of the season.
Yep.
Okay. Now, I will tell you this. I believe a number of factors are involved here.
Okay.
First of all, I've said many times on the air, I think you will see a lot of NFL coaches next summer play their starters more snaps during the preseason than they did this year.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that they're
that.
like rusty, basically. They don't have enough snaps. I got that.
Well, Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator, said himself that because of the new training camp rules and the limited snaps that guys had on defense during the preseason, that he was very worried in September about how his unit was going to come together, especially against the run. It turned out he was right, doesn't it?
Yeah, they got steamrolled.
127.
This was in my mind, this was not necessarily as big a surprise as it might have otherwise been. Only because of, as I saw things developing during the summer, I was saying to myself, okay, this is something we got to keep an eye on.
Okay.
And it turned out to be a problem. Now, go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I don't know this, but was the offense also restricted as well as the defense during the preseason?
Well, no, but here's the problem. Defense is all about hitting people.
Yeah, it's banging.
And knocking people down and tackling people. So you are going to do more of the things you can do to help your offense during training camp than defense. It's just natural. And offensively, you can run one-on-one drills with your receivers. You can run 7-on-7. Passing drills. You can do all kinds of stuff that can help those guys kind of get themselves going, putting the oil on the wheels, if you will.
The defense needs the physicality.
You can't. There's not a whole lot you can do.
Yeah. You need that physicality.
Okay, fellas, this is why I talk about the quicksand of mediocrity in the NFL today. Okay, the rules and the regulations about how this league is set up now, this is what you get. I tell people all the time, I've been telling people for years, September is not the time to judge your football team.
Yeah, it's preseason. Yeah.
Okay, and now I'm glad I've seen coaches and some other people around the league flat out say it, that it's not until October till you really start to figure out who you are.
Okay.
Well, I've been saying that for years.
Sure.
I mean, and I got mocked for it, by the way, by a lot of people.
Yeah, but you've been around the team.
Starting to talk about it.
You've been around the team long enough to realize when they're ready and when they're not. And when guys aren't hitting, then they're going through the motions and they're in meetings all the time. The physicality isn't there.
All right, but Craig, here's the problem.
Yeah.
What do you do if you're a head coach and you've got so much money? Your GM has invested so much money in players.
Yeah.
You have a salary cap that's going to choke you out. And that if you do play some of these guys and they do get hurt in a preseason game, you are doubly screwed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't blame the coaches for having a hesitation.
Yeah, there's still an investment at the end of the day.
It's a fine line. It's a balance.
And every coach has to figure out where he's going to put that tightrope.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yep.
For me, I would play the guys more. That's just me. And
Yep.
I think there will be some coaches who are going to do that next summer. Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
Now that's
at
that's
least-
the rust. That's the rust part of the factor.
Okay. Second part.
Okay.
Second part.
Because there's got to be more because this defense.
Oh,
looks completely
there
different.
is. There is. Second part. I said to the guys on BBK the other day, figure there's 14 regulars, your 11 starters, and then 3 heavy rotational players on
Yep.
defense.
Yep. Sure.
How many of those guys have put forth exactly what's on the back of their football card? And how many of those guys are underperforming?
I would argue that
Individually.
only 2 have performed to the back of their baseball cards. That's a really good point. I've been saying that all year.
Who's
Guys,
those 2? You might want to tell me who those 2 are because I don't see it.
I would say especially with the last few weeks, I would say if you're looking at all year, I would say that Leonard Williams and Logan Ryan have performed to the back of their baseball cards more so than anybody else.
Oh, I would have said Julian Love. The
Okay.
snaps that he has played as Julian Love would be expected to play.
Yeah,
I would have said Azeez Ojulari.
Oh,
Because
hands
he-
down. Yeah.
He
hands
is a
down.
rookie, and for the limited snaps he has played, his production has certainly been good enough.
And
Okay, he hasn't
why-
let anybody down.
And why is Patrick? Well, and you keep going because
Okay.
I'm thinking right away he needs more snaps.
So I would have said Ojulari.
Hold on.
Okay.
I got that one.
And now, after the last 2 games, I would say Leonard Williams is really, he had a really good game early against Denver. He had 6 pressures in that game and was really a force. Then he was quiet for a few weeks, and
He's
now the
back,
last
yeah.
couple of games, he has really started to pick it up again. So I would probably say maybe Leonard Williams as we sit here tonight. And that's really about it.
Why is the question? Why do you think it is? Like, where are they? Is it? I mean, is there something that Graham has changed in the scheme? I mean, like it literally looks like an entirely different defense.
It's not very different. It's not very different at all.
That's what I thought.
But when you have so many players who are not living up to their obligations,
yeah.
where they're not fulfilling their standard of play
Yeah.
that they have already put on tape in the past,
Sure.
Bradbury and a
then
bunch of guys.
you got to say, hey guys, look in the mirror, okay? Do your job. What Logan Ryan said this past week, right? Logan Ryan said this past week, I'm done being a spokesman, talking to guys saying, we got to do this, we got to do that. I'm tired of acting like a captain, trying to get everybody's game to lift up. I'm going to take care of my game this week.
I like
Good for
that
I'm going
quote.
to play the best game I can play this week. And I would advise everybody else to do the same. And maybe that's what they needed to do. Each guy look themselves in the mirror. And as
Yeah.
Bill Belichick loves to say, do your job.
Yeah.
Don't worry about anybody else. Just do your job. And collectively, it will come together.
Yeah. Because they
I
look
think we
at
saw a
us
hell of a defensive performance on Sunday.
hands down. And you're talking about the Carolina Panthers. They have they're dinged up a little bit. They're still an NFL team at the end of the day, right? So, I mean,
Darnold had 300-yard games earlier
Yep.
this season.
Yes,
now,
he did.
I'm not a Darnold guy. He never was. Okay, if you've ever followed me, coming out of USC, I did not think that highly of him. Never
Nope.
have. But having said that, he did have 300-yard games earlier
Yep.
this year and
Yep.
did
Yeah.
captain them to 3 wins in a row. And if the Giants had played, as poorly Sunday as they had earlier this year, who knows? Maybe they would have lost the game. The point is, they played to the back of their football cards on
Yeah.
Sunday.
There was a different
they won.
momentum. There was a different momentum in that game from the defense right out of the gate. Leo
played
played
fantastic.
different. Ojulari played different. Like you said, Bradbury was playing. It had a different tempo to it.
Now, there were 2 things about this game that I can tell you for a fact, and I'm not gonna give you specifics because I can't.
I got you.
But I will tell you the number of MEs. You know what MEs are, right? Mental errors.
Yeah,
Coaches logged them as MEs.
Okay.
I will tell you for a fact the Giants' ME number was dramatically down this past Sunday.
Okay.
Why was that?
Dramatically down.
You think just
I'm not going to give you the
simplification?
specific numbers.
No, and remember, Patrick Graham said from week to week, didn't really show up in the Ram game, but the first thing he said was, I have to make this simpler.
Yeah.
He did say that.
And it may have taken a week to take hold, but part of what Paul is saying, like, hey, if you're having less errors, you can look for a lot of reasons why that happened fresh. But you can also say if it's simpler and you're letting them just play football and they
Then
can
they're
react
faster,
and they don't have to think as much and they can be the great athletes, the amazing athletes that they are, those ME numbers may go down. So it could just be simplicity.
And now there's a second number that went way down on Sunday too. And it literally goes hand in hand. Missed tackles.
Oh,
How many did you count on Sunday?
Not a
5?
lot.
yeah,
Maybe
not many.
6?
Because that's been the dagger to this team from the beginning of the year, watching how many missed tackles. Holy smoke.
Yeah. When you have a game with double-digit missed tackles, that's a very bad sign. You're putting yourself in some problem areas.
Against Dallas, they had 6 missed tackles in one play.
Yeah.
In one play when I think it was Dallas.
New Orleans,
let me see
baby.
here. I'm gonna pull up something here. I got my trusty notes here that I take on every play. You guys know I'm very meticulous on this.
Yeah, I love it.
First series against the Panthers the other day on Sunday, I had a one-on-one tackle where I put a little star next to the play. Okay, I have one here by Roche on a 3-yard loss. You remember the wide receiver end around?
I do.
Yeah.
That was a hell of a play.
Didn't expect that out of him, by the way.
All
He's
right.
been playing pretty well.
I have one here on Bradbury. It was a 3rd and 3, the third snap from scrimmage. Bradbury had a one-on-one tackle against Howard and set up a 4th and 1, which they wound up converting. But the one-on-one tackle by Bradbury was terrific.
Which, by the way,
that's the kind of thing they weren't doing before.
I was just going to say earlier in the year, there's a good chance he missed that tackle.
All right. And let's see. The other one I have here is Logan Ryan. 3rd and 8 from the Giants 28 Freeman. 1-yard pass in the right flat. Logan Ryan comes up. One-on-one, nobody else around.
Yep.
And he sticks him right there. No yak yardage whatsoever.
Yep. I sit on the 22-yard line. It was right in front of me. Yep.
Textbook,
I remember it well.
Right, Craig?
Yep. Perfect.
You can't diagram it any better.
And by the way, that's been missing for 5 weeks.
When's the last time you saw 3 textbook one-on-one tackles on the same drive from a Giants defense?
Last year.
Maybe 2016.
Probably 15 years ago.
What about 15?
All right, Judge, I rest my case. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Do your job. Yeah. Those guys made individual one-on-one tackles. They weren't looking for help. They weren't asking the scheme to assist them.
Yep.
They saw the guy. They did what they were supposed to do. They sought him out like a heat-seeking missile, and they stopped him dead in his tracks. That's what you're supposed to do. That's defense.
And I really like the fact that Graham is playing, what do you call it, in the middle over Shelton. I think he's a better option.
And by the way, that's the other name, Austin Johnson.
Johnson.
Yes, thank you.
Austin Johnson.
What a difference that kid makes.
Up until Leonard Williams, the last 2 weeks, when I think he has really started to come on, I thought Austin Johnson was their most consistent, highest level performing defensive lineman.
Hands down. Hands down. You don't have to think it. That's a fact.
All right, and that's it. Okay, those are the guys in my mind from week 1 to now who have played to the level that they were expected to play to.
I'd say he might have even overplayed for what he was. I mean, he's wedged in there with some all pros, and he was out kicking his coverage, so to speak. I thought he played great, and I think it's a difference maker. I mean, listen, nothing against Danny Shelton, but I think
Danny Shelton hasn't played well at all.
Yeah, he's not needed, or what do you call it? It's just a better player. And I think it shows because if Leo can get less double teams or he's got someone next to him, listen, we all saw all those NASCAR packages back in the day, right? When you had Tuck on the line, with Strahan on the line, OC on the line, you had power and speed. Like, they need a little bit of that to get Leo free, and I think he makes a difference. So it's a great point.
All right, so those are the guys, and we've just dissected this. And I don't know if those are all the answers that you wanted, but we just gave you a host of things as you look through the different angles of the prism that all add up to a defense that has underperformed.
Yeah.
Well, I think Monday night they'll be tested for sure. So I'm excited to see, I'm excited to see that because I think that it's possible they could have turned a corner. And I think
It's
Monday
possible.
night will show us some things.
I know Michael's got a question, and we could talk a little Chiefs. I mean, the point spread's 10 points, and the Chiefs are a little bit of a mess right now. So if the Giants were ever going to come in and knock somebody out, this would be the week because you got a banged up QB in Mahomes. They're fumbling, they're dropping the ball. they're a little upside down right now. It'd be a little bit of a trap game for the Giants. But go ahead, Michael. I know you had a question.
Well, I wanted to just add what Paul was saying. He mentioned two players that have been playing really well with Ojulari and Roche. Do you think, or would you like to see them play more over Carter and Jimenez?
Well, Jimenez is already starting to lose some snaps, I think, to be honest with you, because he came out of training camp, as you know. Remember, he missed some time. And then he started, they started giving him some snaps, and the production just wasn't there.
No.
And Ojulari came out of the gate doing some pretty good things. And so he is already whittled away into some of those opportunities. I see no reason why Ojulari, if the arrow continues to point up, why wouldn't you play him more? Now, Roche, interesting. I was talking about this on the post-game show on the WFAN on the radio after the game the other day. And I said, this is a guy who came out of the University of Miami, known more as a pass rusher than anything else. But I've seen him make some pretty stout, powerful plays on the edge of that line, which has shown me that his power quotient, maybe in terms of being stout and holding up and holding his ground and maybe playing against the run, is a little bit better than people are giving him credit for. So I'm curious about Roche. I don't know if he's as quick a comer as Ojulari is, because the arrow is really accelerating for him. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah.
But I think Roche, I'm curious. I'm intrigued. I do think there might be something there.
What do you make of Carter?
He can't do any worse than Carter, right?
What do you make of Carter? He's somebody that in the last 2 seasons coming into the year, I was really, really excited about him. What do you make of him?
Incredibly disappointing. I can say personally, I really love the guy. He is such a cool dude. He is such a good teammate. He is such a great guy. He looks like he was chiseled out of the side of Mount Rushmore. I mean, he meets all the measurables.
Yeah.
And I know he had the Achilles last year, but he comes to training camp this year, and Judge is telling us that, he is perfectly healthy. There is no residue from the Achilles whatsoever. We watch him at camp, and he's flying around. He really looks like he's got all the physical tools back. If anything, he looks faster and stronger than he's ever been before. The season starts, and the production doesn't seem to be there. And I'm going to be honest, it is one of the more puzzling resumes right now for me to dissect. Because he's got the attitude, he's got the heart, he's got the knowledge, he certainly has the skills and the body to do it, and yet he'll make a flash play every once in a while, but there just has not been any consistency at all. And I think that's a very big disappointment right now.
Earlier in the year, I spent some time with the All-22. It might have been the Saints game, or it might have been it was the Dallas game, that I remember. And if you remember, Zeke had a couple runs where he popped it on the outside. And I'm watching the film, kind of to your point, like the disappointment is from technique. He shows no technique for a professional linebacker. I mean, no outside leverage. He steps down inside and gets swallowed up. He doesn't hold contain. I mean, I kind of scratch my head. Like, I know they probably don't have to go over a lot of this stuff with them. They're professional linebackers. They're professional athletes. But when I watch him play, there's no technique there at all. Like, I mean, watching him step down inside and then run around him is puzzling. When again, I never played pro football, but having played some college football, always contain, set the edge, push it back inside, right? Always hold outside leverage. I mean, that was always the outside linebacker's job. And when you watch him play after play after play, his first step down inside and get swallowed up, you'll wonder, like, to your point, like, specimen. Everyone in the locker room loves him. When they say who's got the best sense of humor on the team, they're like, oh, it's got to be Carter and Peppers. Everybody loves him, right? But when he's on the field, I don't know if it's the fire in his belly, it's the technique or what. It's just not there. It's sad because everybody,
what I wanted to see them do with Lorenzo Carter, and I know it's a different game today, but I was always hoping when they got him, I know some people were hoping he'd be a pass rusher.
Just let him go.
They were hoping he would wind up being a big sack artist.
Yeah.
I never thought that for him. What I wanted from Lorenzo Carter was to be a strong side linebacker who would hold the point of attack
and
beat the living stuffing out of every tight end who tried to get off the line.
You got it.
That's what I wanted from Lorenzo Carter.
You wanted him to be Carl Banks.
Like Carl Banks did. Yep, like Carl Banks did. Exactly.
You're talking.
Yep.
You're talking my language.
Yeah, I got you.
And unfortunately, because of maybe the Giants' needs of getting more pass rush, that's never really what they've asked Lorenzo Carter to do.
Yeah.
Okay? It's really not. And that troubles me, and again, you mentioned Banks. I talk to Carl all the time. He's on our broadcast team.
Yeah, sure.
I've never seen a guy beat up tight ends off the line like Carl Banks. He was the best ever at beating up tight ends off the line of scrimmage. Okay? I'm sure that there were tight ends who played during his day who wet their pants before kickoff because they knew Carl was going to kick the living stuffing out of them.
When Paul, when we interviewed Carl, I don't know, 2 months ago, right? And he's been great to me. Like we've gotten pretty friendly with Carl. When we interviewed him, he said to me, the reason why he was so good is because him and Bavaro went at it all week long, and Coach Pope would come up to him and say, hey, do me a favor. Give Mark a run for his money today, will you?
I watched those practices, man. I saw them.
So he says
great.
Says there's
who do you think, by the way, a little bit off tangent?
Sure.
Who was the best teacher for Lawrence Taylor? Jumbo Elliott.
Oh, yeah, sure, because they're going at it all day long.
Oh, man. What would happen is Parcells and Earhart and the coaches, they would tell Jumbo, you got to stay in there because we got nobody else who can challenge LT. And they would force Jumbo to take extra snaps in practice. Sometimes he'd have to go through the whole two-a-days and not come off the field because they had no other tackle who could challenge LT.
Yeah, sure. And it made him better for it, right?
Absolutely.
Yep. And Carl said right on it, he goes, I was as good as I was because Mark Bavaro made me that good. And he said, I'm pretty sure he would tell you the same thing. He says, practice.
Damn straight.
He's like, practice would stop. And everybody would gather around and me and Mark would go at it.
Yep.
He started telling the story from the broadcast booth. There's someone that sits, around the 40-yard line, two guys, older gentlemen. One wears a Bavaro jersey, one wears a Banks jersey. And he says every year he takes a picture on his phone from the broadcast booth and he sends it to Mark and he says, they still love us, Mark. They still love us.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. He didn't tell me that one. That's very cool.
Yeah. He was great with us, and because he said, look, we were asking him a bunch of questions and he's like, I appreciate you guys giving me all these accolades. He's like, I owe it all to Mark Bavaro. He's like, he's
humble. He's a humble guy.
He's like,
he's very humble.
Coach Pope would come up to him and say, hey, do me a favor. Give Mark a run today. Couple cheap shots, knock him on his ass. Do whatever you got to do. And he says, and then we went at it all week long. We shook hands. And we've been best friends since. So they're still good friends to this day.
No doubt. And I don't want to take anything away from LT because he's the greatest football player, especially defensively, that's ever walked the face of the earth.
Yep.
And Jumbo didn't get there till later in Lawrence's career, of course.
Yep.
But let me make it clear that those situations were done on purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, Parcells knew exactly what buttons to push and who to put up against who and who to whisper dirty things to say, I need you to do this and I need you to do that. I mean, that's what made Bill Bill. Of course, Parcells could never coach today because today's game and today's players would never let that happen.
Yeah, ask John Gruden. All right, Fresh, you got an internet question for me?
Yeah. You know what? There was a few good good Twitter questions, but I think one of them kind of encompasses a few different of them. Like we already touched a little bit on Kaden Smith and stuff like that. I think one good one is what are the fans missing that some coaches see in some of their personnel decisions, such as playing Solder over Part. A lot of people would love to see Part get some snaps over Solder. Like what's going on behind the scenes that maybe we don't see. Or, you know, you touched on Kaden Smith a little bit. Zimenez and Carter we touched on. But like Holmes getting more snaps maybe. Like, what are some of the things, mainly Solder and Part, but like overall, goes into some of those decisions that maybe fans don't see in terms of like who
starts and who plays? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Peart, Solder, and Cunningham are the only 3 healthy tackles they have on the roster right now. So
That's true.
I mean, what exactly do they want? I mean, no, I'm not. I mean, seriously.
I
here's
think
the
that
thing.
question, though, is more reflecting on before Thomas got hurt.
Okay.
You know, I'm guessing here, but I think that if I read between the lines, why is Solder starting over Peart?
That's really easy. That's really easy. You got to remember something. When the Giants went into the offseason, they didn't know if Solder was going to come back off of the opt-out of COVID.
Yep.
And they knew that Cam Fleming was going to be a free agent.
Okay.
And they knew that Andrew Thomas was going to be their stud left tackle and that they were hoping Matthew Peart would accelerate to the point where he could be the starting right tackle.
Step in and play.
One of those 2 veterans was going to have to come back as the insurance policy as the 3rd tackle.
Okay.
Judge wanted Solder. So they allowed Fleming to walk. Solder got a call from Joe Judge during the offseason, and I'm not telling any secrets. Solder told me this personally. Judge called him in the offseason. Solder had contemplated retirement.
Okay.
And Judge said, I need you back. It's that simple. And Solder was so honored and felt so grateful and so trusting of Judge that Judge said, I need you. I want you. We have to have you on this team. That made up Solder's mind very quickly. Any doubts he had about retiring were gone. He was going to come back. So they redid the deal. As you know, Solder took a pay cut.
Yep.
Came back as the 3rd tackle. And the deal was really simple. Peart is going to be the young guy who we'd like to see win the job. But Nate, you're the 3rd tackle. You're the insurance policy. If either Peart doesn't come along quick enough or you actually go in and outplay him, you'll be the starting right tackle. It was that simple. There's no mysterious, storyline behind this. It was very straightforward from the very beginning. Now, Peart, during the offseason, you remember he had some back issues.
Yes.
He was hurt.
He came into training camp and he wasn't fully physically ready to go.
No.
So he was left behind. He was obviously climbing uphill.
Yep.
Solder came in great shape, had all his injuries healed up from being out for a season, and basically came in and did everything he was asked to do. It was felt, lost some weight, and quite frankly, looked like a more reliable right tackle during the course of training camp than anybody else they had. And you must also understand, Joe Judge trusts Nate Solder.
Sure.
Because he's incredibly intelligent. Now, is there a law of diminishing returns because physically Nate Solder's best days are behind him? Absolutely. There's no question about that. No one's going to argue that. But the problem is, because Peart was already behind, well, Nate won the job. He deserved to start. And while he was going at it at the right tackle spot, Peart was practicing and trying to get caught up to speed. Okay. And he had done nothing during the course of the first month of the season at practice that indicated he should wrestle the job away from Solder. Now, Solder, I understand that. The fans are saying, well, Nate's kind of on the down, and he may not have much left.
Yeah.
And he's had some rough spots.
He's had some rough spots.
I get that. But here's the problem. Joe Judge knows he can trust him.
Yeah.
And Matthew Peart had done nothing in the first month of practice that was above and beyond that would force him to make the change. It's really that simple.
Do you think that when
Now
Thomas,
they have no choice. I mean, now those guys have to play.
do you think that when Thomas comes back this season, he's slated to come back this season, that Part it's viable that he starts at right tackle or Peart?
What's going to happen is as these weeks go by, now Thomas is going to be out for a minimum 3 weeks because of IR.
Yeah.
All right, he's already missed one game. I don't know exactly how long he'll be out. Okay, let me make that clear. I don't know that. He might be back by the bye for all I know, or it may be longer.
So the bye week is the week before Thanksgiving, I think.
Yeah, he might be. He might be only on IR for 3 weeks, which is the minimum.
Yeah,
or
no,
maybe
it's fair.
back by the bye.
Two
I don't
more
know.
games left.
It's fair to say, let's see how Peart plays over these next handful of weeks, and then
There's
when
no
Thomas.
question. There's no question. What's going to happen is Peart, Solder, and to some degree Cunningham are all trying to find the right mix and the right amount of production that's going to force Judge to make them the other tackle when Thomas comes back. There's no question. This is an open competition for those three guys to determine who the starter is going to be.
Yeah, I'm hoping somebody steps up and wants the job.
Well, and that's what you want. That's the whole next man up mentality, right, fellas?
Sure.
It's called competition.
I know you don't want to hang out with us all night, so I'm going to give you a 2-part question.
Well, the Knicks are crushing the Sixers, so that makes me very happy.
Yeah. Oh, you got it on there on the TV?
I'm just looking at my phone right now, and late third quarter, Knicks are up by 18 or 22 now.
Wait, 18? Oh, that's
22-point lead for the Bockers, baby. They're rocking the Garden.
I'm sure the Garden's pumping right now too.
I'm sure it is.
Okay, well, because people are loving the fact that the Knicks are back and they're good. All right, 2 quick questions. If you cannot answer this first question, I get it, and I'll apologize in advance because I answer
every question that I possibly can as honestly as I can.
You're always good to me. You're always good to us. I just have this itch about the trading deadline. Is there something to the trading deadline, or is this? We have a bunch of contracts.
It's November 2nd.
Are we involved in this thing, or is it not on the radar?
No, I'm going to tell you exactly what Joe Judge said because I believe him. He said there will be a lot of calls made around the league, and it'll probably be next week before the Giants even start thinking about any of those calls. Because right now they got too much to deal with. They just beat Carolina. They got a Monday night game in Kansas City, which, by the way, is a winnable game, fellas. Just let me make that clear.
That actually, by the way, is the second question. It was.
Oh, it's a winnable game. Yeah, it is a winnable game. The matchup at this point tells you the Giants have a chance to win this game.
Totally.
And having said that, why should Joe Judge be thinking about anything else, or have his players think about anything else? Yeah. Now, there will always be calls around the league as you get to the trading deadline. I had somebody at a dinner the other day ask me, "Well, who are the Giants going to trade?" I said, "Well, listen. The first thing you have to think about with any trade." Think about the salary cap implications on next year's dead money.
Yeah.
Okay? If you're going to trade anybody who has years and bonus money left on his contract, you're going to hurt your cap in 2022.
Yeah.
Now,
and there's not a lot of.
If they find a deal that they think is worth it, they might be willing to do that. But to be frank with you, I would be surprised if they found a deal that would be worth them adding dead money to next year's cap, which you probably already know. You don't need me to tell you.
Yeah, it's
going to be very, very slim.
Yeah, it's very okay. Yeah, you have to find a way to.
They got guys who are free agents, though. They got guys who are free agents.
So that's what you want to do. If you're going to look to deal anybody for advance or future assets, you're going to want to deal guys who are in the final years of their contract,
which is like your Peppers, your Ingram, who
Carter.
else? Carter.
You guys can look that up. I'm not here to tell you those names.
All right, let's talk. Final, like I said, winnable game. What's the keys to winning on Monday? And we'll let you get back to the Knicks. I mean, they're banged up. Mahomes is banged up. He passed concussion protocol. I don't know how you pass concussion protocol in one day, but evidently he passed concussion protocol. And listen, for a guy who's had 6 concussions, I always look at them pretty seriously. And I'm like, hey, guy passed in one day. I don't know. Anyway, he's banged up. They're fumbling the ball. They're dropping the ball on the turf. It's winnable, right? It's a winnable game.
Minus 10.
The 10
Yeah,
point spread.
It's a very winnable game. Now, having said that, because you know that Patrick Mahomes can throw the ball from any arm angle and can reach any point on the field from literally any place in the pocket or even outside of it. I mean, the guy makes miraculous passes. Let's not kid ourselves.
Sure. He's incredible.
Because of that, and because of Tyreek Hill's speed, and because of Kelsey's ability to break tackles and also to find holes in a zone.
We get
at
killed
any
by
given
tight ends.
time, those three guys at any given time will always give the Kansas City Chiefs an opportunity to win a game. Okay, let's make that very clear.
And we don't
Those
cover the
three
tight end very
guys
well.
Can win a game just by themselves.
Yep.
So
Let's
Giants
make
aren't
that
known to
clear.
cover the tight end.
Okay. However, look, Parcells used to tell us all the time. All right. I quote him all the time. Banks calls me the Parcells whisperer because I know so many of Bill's philosophies and I quote him so often. Bill used to talk about the paths to victory. And he would look at each team and then he would say, okay, this is the matchup. This is how the game needs to go if the Giants are going to win. And then he would say, okay, can you do this, this, and that? And he would flip the coin the other way and say, all right, if the opponent's going to win, this is the way the game needs to go. And can they do this, this, and that? Okay? And that's how Bill would call it the paths to victory. The Giants, if they play like they did Sunday, they've got several paths to victory. How do I address that? Well, let's start with defense. Kansas City does not have much of a running game.
Agreed.
The Giants were very, very good in stuffing the run this past week.
They
In
were.
fact, Carolina, I mean, what they have 173 yards of total offense.
Yeah, no, they were
Okay.
great defensively.
So that could be something that's realistically possible. The Giants tackled extremely well and did not allow yards after catch.
No.
What do you think the Chiefs live on and
Yeah,
have
yards.
over the last several years?
Yeah.
Missed tackles and yards after catch.
Yep.
Bingo!
Yeah. Especially with a guy
Now,
like
if
Hill.
the Giants take care of business on both of those categories, which they did Sunday, all of a sudden, the Chiefs' explosive offense
Isn't so explosive.
quite as explosive anymore.
Yeah, sure.
Okay?
Makes sense.
So is that a realistic path towards victory? Yes, it is. Let's take it a step further. Pass rush. Giants woke up with a pass rush last week against a subpar Carolina offensive line. Well, guess what? Kansas City's offensive line right now is pretty subpar.
Yeah.
Did you know Mahomes, between pressures, quarterback hits, and sacks, has been harassed over 70 times this year? In fact, I believe the number right now between those three categories totals 72 on the season, which is tied for second most among quarterbacks in the league.
That's
Their
incredible.
offensive line is letting people get to him.
It's interesting how the fact they let go both those two tackles last year, like they were just going to replace him so easy.
Well,
Didn't
they
quite-
traded for Orlando Brown.
Yeah.
And by
And
the
they
way, he's not playing up to the back of his football card.
No.
And now Liao Deng was benched last week. Our old friend Mike Remmers is now playing right tackle.
Comes full circle back to
They
Remmers.
don't-
Okay?
They
So
know him pretty
now,
well.
you tell me, is it reasonable to expect the Giants pass rush, which had 6 sacks last week, is it reasonable to expect that they're going to harass Mahomes?
Yeah.
I
Of
think
course.
that's a fair
Well,
fair
they
expectation.
better. They
Reasonable,
better.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now I've given you 3 paths that could all lead to victory, and all 3 are reasonable. Right?
And
Yep.
we haven't even touched on our offense against their defense.
Let's turn it the other way. All right. Well, this is what I do every week. I'm actually giving you guys an exercise in how I analyze a game. This is a very simplistic, reduced version, but this is how I
Okay.
do it. So now let's look at the Giants offense against Kansas City's defense. Okay. They made a mistake by moving Chris Jones out to defensive end. You guys know he's an outstanding defensive tackle, one of the best in football, right?
Yeah, they're doing him a disservice, but go ahead. I'm with you.
Okay. They moved him to defensive end. He's not a defensive end.
Yeah.
He's playing out of position.
Yeah, he's a stand-up
But they had
guy.
no choice because they weren't getting any production out there.
Yeah.
Okay, so they've now hurt themselves, but they can't help it. Frank Clark has been a bust. His production has been terrible.
That's a head scratcher right there.
Well, he aged very quickly in a year.
They spent draft picks on him, and then they gave him a big contract, and he has not given them any returns. Their defensive tackle spots are hurt because they moved Jones outside. So basically what I'm telling you is right now, their defensive line, no bueno.
Yep.
All right. Their linebackers, Bolton, the rookie, is a very good downhill, charge the gaps, go straight ahead, fill the hole, and stop the run between the tackles.
And we don't run.
That's what he does well.
Yeah.
But he doesn't cover very well, and he's also inexperienced, so you can fool him.
Yeah, maybe screens, Booker.
The rest of their linebacking core, they have a tremendous amount of trouble on their drops and in coverage.
Seam passes.
Okay. So we've now addressed their front seven, and I think we would agree, even though the Giants do not have a good running game whatsoever, I think we would agree that despite the fact that the Chiefs have the 6th most frequent blitz package in the NFL at 31%.
Wow.
How scary is this?
Yeah.
They're tied for the fewest sacks in the league, and yet they're blitzing the 6th most in the league. What does that tell you?
That's an amazing stat right there.
Okay. So Spags, who I have a world of respect for,
of course,
okay, he's doing whatever he can. He's basically trying to eat soup with a fork. Okay? And it's not chunky.
No.
So they don't have a pass rush. Their front seven is not particularly active and able to even their linebackers can't help in pass coverage. Their secondary, which is nothing like what it was a few years ago, okay? Nothing like what it was. How are they supposed to live on an island if right now they've got their most talent on their entire defense? If you want to argue that they're most talents in the back in the secondary with Honey Badger and a couple of their other guys back there.
Yeah.
You can't win that way. If your front seven can't do much of anything, how are you supposed to win?
Which, by the way, is what the Giants started off with. We had great DBs and we couldn't get any.
We saw that early this year.
Yeah. We know that all too well.
So they've got a defense that is not playing anywhere near to the level that they need to play at to really be competitive.
Okay.
And that's because they just don't have enough players, guys. This isn't on Spags. He's trying.
Yeah, sure.
Do you see them having a better path at more of a shootout or more of a low scoring game?
Better not be a shootout.
I think it's probably going to be a shootout. But I've just given you the paths that the Giants can rationally use for their defense, and I've also given you paths for the Giants' offense.
I like it.
Now, think about this.
Do we know if Shepard or Galladay's coming back?
If Tony and Shepard are in this game,
yeah, you can win that game.
I really like the Giants.
Are
Tony, Shepard, and Galladay playing?
I don't think all three of them.
I would tend to think, based on what we know right now, Tony and Shepard are more likely than Galladay and Barkley. But we're going to know more tomorrow when they get on the practice field and we see what the guys do.
Even one guy makes a difference because right now you're out there with Slayton by himself. So, yeah, even if you bring back Shepard or you are fortunate to bring Tony back, I mean, that's a huge, huge lift for Jones to have more options.
Definitely.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt.
Well,
and the other thing I should say to you is that as you watch the tape, Mahomes has 9 picks, which is tied with Zach Wilson of the Jets for the most in the NFL, right?
It's funny you say that. I looked that up yesterday and I was shocked.
Okay. All right. Well, his accuracy has literally fallen off the charts.
Yep.
He is having a lot of trouble pinpointing his passes right now. And I think part of the reason is what you've seen other teams do is they know that they don't need to blitz against that offensive line to get to Mahomes.
Sure. Russian
Okay?
3, Russian
They don't
4.
have to. So teams are going to sub packages, going with 6 and 7 defensive backs.
Yeah.
They're playing either the 2 deep or they're playing quarters where you got 4 deep with a picket fence in the back.
Yep.
They're playing zone, which is very smart because you don't want a man up Hill. He's got too many moves.
Yep.
You don't
Yeah.
want a man up Kelsey. He'll run circles around you.
Yep.
So they're playing zone. Okay.
They're getting home.
Then combinations underneath. They're forcing Mahomes to get rid of the ball quicker than he wants to. Okay. And because I gotta put that phone aside over there. And what they're doing is they're preventing yards after the catch.
Yeah, which will kill you if you don't, because those guys can do that all day
Boy,
long. So you gotta take it
Exactly.
away.
They're taking away the bread and butter of the Chiefs. Their
I-
bread and butter was the deep ball and the yards after the catch.
I think one
And now
thing
without
that
a running game, what's Mahomes supposed to do?
also
Yeah, he's got nothing. Yeah.
let's keep one thing in mind. He's still hurt, right? I mean, he's dinged up. He's probably
We don't
not,
know how much, but
No,
he
but-
may not be. He
but
may
we-
not be 100%.
correct. It's kind of like, look, you get hit in the head, you get hit in the head, right? You're not. It takes some time to clear out them cobwebs. He might not be making the greatest decisions on Sunday or Monday anyway. So
quite possibly. Now, I will tell you the other thing that I've noticed on tape, and it's happening more and more. And I think part of the reason is, Tyreek Hill and
Kelsey,
Kelsey, they've both had their share of injuries too.
sure.
They've been beaten up. Okay. In fact, well, let me see if I got my notations here.
Because
I got-
I'm sure guys are taking shots at Kelsey like they used to take with Gronk.
I got Hill's nursing a quad, and Kelsey's nursing a neck injury. Okay. Now, I have noticed on tape. Remember what we talked about with Banks?
Yeah.
Teams have been using either a safety or a linebacker to jam Kelsey at the line.
We
So
don't
now
have
think about this.
we don't have peppers though, Paul. Who's going to do that?
Well, to be frank with you, if it were me, and again,
You're listen. On my show, you're in charge. It is you. Tell us. It's all you, Paul. It's all you.
And if all
If
you
it
guys
were
missed
me-
it, all you fans missed it,
if
Paul
it
said
were me,
Giants
I-
plus 10.
I might stick Tate Crowder on him.
Okay, because he's quick and he's nimble. Okay.
He's got some athleticism.
I like
All
it.
right. I'm
I
okay
might
with
stick
that.
Tate Crowder on him.
Because you're not putting love in the box on him.
No.
You're kind of limited on, to
McKinney might be able to do it.
You know what?
you-
McKinney's really played a lot better the last few games. I thought he was
Yeah.
lost early in the year.
Yeah. But anyway, the point being that, Mahomes is trying to get rid of the ball quicker.
Yeah.
He knows that they don't have the ability now to go deep because teams are playing more of that shell.
Yep.
And so if you jam Kelsey off the line, that disturbs that route. And now
But-
all of a sudden he can't find his favorite tight end anymore.
This is a
And now
dumb
Leonard
question,
Williams
but
is getting home.
what about Cam Brown? Is he just not that guy? Because Cam Brown got activated. He's
I don't know if Cam Brown is ready for that responsibility yet.
I'm just thinking from a body style type. He's got long arms. He can
I
get
know.
he could get in. He can get into Kelsey off the line if he had it. If the chemical or the physical makeup is there, he might also be a good candidate for it. I don't know if he's able to do it, but body style.
Lack of
wise-
experience against Kelsey might be a bad thing there.
Yeah,
I agree. with that one,
Kelsey might just school him off the line to get free.
yeah.
I don't
Okay.
know that I would do that.
I'm just thinking out loud.
At least Crowder's played a lot more snaps over the
Oh, yeah.
first 2 years.
Yep, no doubt.
But maybe that's not the answer either. Maybe it is McKinney. I'm not sure they would do that, and I'm not sure that they would do it anyway. The Giants, like most teams, seem very reluctant to beat up the other team's tight end. That part of football seems to have gone in the toilet.
Listen, for as a former strong safety and corner, and being not that fast of a guy, I made a living on jamming people off the line of scrimmage. So yes, that is an art form that has definitely gone away. There's no doubt.
Hey, look, I can't tell you how many times I would watch the Giants play the Cowboys, and I'd be down there on the sideline, on the field, and I would be saying, can somebody please slam Jason Witten in the face?
Yeah.
Somebody please.
But it's true. But it's true, because all you need to do is offset the timing.
And I don't want to be violent here. I'm joking, obviously.
No.
Hyperbole here, guys.
It's all good. It's
but
all
the
good.
point is, chuck them hard.
Yeah.
Make them know that it's going to be difficult to get through that detour.
And you throw the timing off for the quarterback.
No question.
That jam right in the solar plex, right on the shoulder pads, right where that cup is. Now he's off his route. Now Mahomes is looking for him, and he's not there because he's trying to get through the jam.
Craig, you understand this because you say you played the position. You know how they tell you offensive linemen, especially tackles, have to strike?
Yeah.
And they have to get that punch?
Of course.
That's exactly what a strong side linebacker or a safety should be doing to a tight end at the line.
And that's what we wanted Lorenzo Carter to be able to do.
Again, they have not given him that role.
Yeah.
Maybe, who knows? Maybe it's him this week.
Maybe.
Well, listen, I can't tell him, but you can. Listen, Paul.
I have too much respect for Patrick Graham to tell him what to do on Sundays.
Of course. And by the way, just for what it's worth, it was so good, to finally meet you a couple weeks ago, and Ballard was there, right?
Love Jake Ballard.
Yeah.
He's great.
We've gotten pretty friendly with Jake.
He came on with us.
Yeah, and we've talked a little bit. And the story is, and I think you'll laugh at this, sometimes we get some cool stories out of these guys. When he comes on, Paul, he's jacked, right?
Oh, I know.
But here's where it gets funny. I said, Jake, I'm sure you played around 265, 270. What are you weighing now? And he goes, 299. Now, I never think anything about what he says. We get Kevin Booth on, and we're talking about, hey, Jake was on a couple of weeks ago, and he's like, oh, yeah, Jake is huge. And he goes, yeah, he's 299. Kevin Booth stops and goes, guys, let me ask you a question. Does anyone ever say they're 299? He's like, that guy's either 300 pounds plus, and he doesn't want to tell you, and 299 makes him feel better. And and the way he said it, we couldn't stop laughing. So when I
he's like, he's 315.
Yeah, exactly. Like you would say, oh, I weigh this, but 299, like the 1 pound made a difference. So when I saw him the other day, I go, hey, just want to let you know, Kevin Booth told me to tell you, you're not 299. And he goes, he's like, giving away all my secrets, man. But it was just so funny. Two former teammates, they lined up right next to each other, the tackle, the guard, the tight end, just funny. When he's got the ring, we took a picture of it, and it was good to see him. So you guys do such a good job, in the pregame show. Keep up the good work. We always appreciate what you guys are doing.
Appreciate that, man. Thanks very much. We're just really sorry that this year we can't bring all the alums out every week. We usually have an alum out with us every week to sign autographs and take pictures with the fans right next to our stage there at MetLife Stadium during the pregame show.
Yep.
But because of the whole protocol stuff, that all stopped, and they had the anniversary of the 2011 Super Bowl team, at the game, and that's why Jake was willing to come down and do a quick hit with us. But yeah, we enjoy having the fans out there. That's a lot of fun doing that show.
Yeah, like I said, I normally go right in the stadium because I sit in the lower bowl, and I'm like, wait, there's Paul. Maybe I can. And then Jake came over. I don't know. It was just sometimes it's just good to see you guys down there. You guys do such a great job.
Thank you very much.
All right, so you're listening to another episode of the Giants Guys. We're going to produce this tomorrow sometime in the morning, and then we'll have this up ready to go. Make sure you're tuning in to, to Paul. Giants.com, WFAN. He's everywhere. You guys can get in touch with us on Twitter. You guys know where we're at. Paul, of course, thank you very much. By the way, last time we did a show, we split your show because we got so much good information. Michael Stewart laughs at me because he goes, Craig, the only guy that can talk more than you and has good Giants information is Paul. And I'm like, I know we need to make 2 shows when we have Paul on. He's got so much good information.
Split it into 2 episodes.
Yeah,
Look, it's an Italian thing, you know.
It is.
Once you
Oh,
wind us
yeah.
up, we just keep going.
I know. Dottino, Santucci, we're probably roommates in the old country somewhere. So anyway, thanks for watching another episode of the Giants, guys. We're out. Have a good night.